Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
And today we're going to be continuing our episodes on Carnavale.
Yes. But before we get started, this is the second time we've done the intro, and I'm still rusty, even though we just recorded a previous episode. Before we get started on this episode, where things are only going up from here, we want to say thank you to everyone who has been following us and commenting, leaving us reviews, contacting us on our website and Instagram. If you want to follow us, you can do so on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go to our website, onlyabag.com, to find articles that we've written and to contact us there. You can also contact us on Instagram at onlyabagpodcast. If you would like to help out the channel, the podcast, that's us, you can donate directly to us on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com. That helps us buy gear and all of the stuff that we need to record the podcast. You can also use the affiliate links in the description. That doesn't cost you anything extra. It's just that when you book a hotel or a tour or anything like that, we get a little kickback from that company.
Absolutely. And I guess we're going to jump right into it.
Yes, let's do it.
I say, I guess, like I'm technically the lead of today's show, I guess, right? As the lead of Friday's show. So
yes, Nathaniel wrote the notes today, so he's leading this episode.
We've also changed to a notepad format on our phones because Nathaniel's notes longhand were unintelligible for everybody involved in this podcast, all two of us. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start in Cento, a town technically in Ferrara, in the province of Ferrara, which famous for its marble, actually. Interestingly, I think. Isn't Ferrara marble a thing?
Carrara.
Not famous for its marble. Not sure what it's famous for, but it's there. Love it already. So we're now going uphill from here. This is where it goes uphill. That's crazy. How do you have Ferrara and Carrara in the same place? Come on, y'all. Not in the same place, but in the same country. It's in Emilia Romagna, and that really should have told me where it was, because we've been through Carrara, and it was nowhere near Emilia Romagna. I was like, okay,
correct.
Well, that's interesting. Emilia Romagna, famous for basically being the home of Parmesan cheese and, balsamic vinegar, among other things. There are other things too. But I only wanted to point out where it is, by the way, for those of you. Almost all of these Carnavale we are talking about, apart from Venice in the last episode, are not going to be in big cities, really. They are going to be in smaller cities, larger towns, and things that are not probably going to be on your radar if you are coming to Italy for the first time, or if you're just coming for the 10th time, but if you have a specific plan in mind. So I'm going to try on all of these to mention kind of near where they are or where they're close to.
The nearest big city.
So you can kind of figure like, oh, we can go there. So with this one, it'd probably be Ferrara, but also if you're in Bologna, Modena, Parma, now I'm just naming towns to show off. I do know some geography. Then you can easily get there as well. This one is interesting because it's twinned with Rio de Janeiro, which with total respect, it is always interesting when I'm like, there's the Carnevale. And then it's twinned with, I've never heard of this one, but it's in somewhere in Italy. You know, it's always like a bit of you're kind of just taking the name at this point, but it is technically twinned with the one in Rio de Janeiro. And every year in Cento, they will have some of the floats from the previous year's Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. So if you could not get to Rio de Janeiro, you could just get to Cento a year later, which I kind of find fascinating.
Yeah. How do they bring the float? I mean, they're big floats, right?
They are. Well, and I'm also kind of curious because as we're going to talk about with some of these other ones, they use a steel structure. And then they use typically some kind of resin. I think some people use stone, some people use concrete. To build up the underlayer, and then papier-mâché on top, because you can get finer details with papier-mâché by hand than like stone. If you mess something up, I guess you have to redo the whole stone.
It's also probably a lot less heavy.
Yes,
because they have to move.
Some of these are huge floats, and I think I want to say floats too. I've been to Mardi Gras once.
You've
somewhere.
been to Mardi Gras?
I don't know where. I don't think it was in New Orleans. I don't think it was in Savannah either.
How old were you?
I don't know.
Okay, a small child.
As a small child, I went with a friend to Mardi Gras, and his parents were there too. Don't worry. It wasn't just the two of us being like, we should do this. There were beads and floating. It might have been New Orleans. It'd been weird as New Orleans. Anyway, this is a terrible story. Don't ever let me tell stories.
Okay.
This is
it's
awful.
Great though.
Thank you. And of the floats I recall, I remember them being like kind of big, but like very fundamentally still like a float on a car or a float on like a trailer being pulled by a car. And a lot of these maybe are the same, but are huge. Like some of them almost look 2 stories tall. They are massive, massive floats. So I guess it does behoove them to use papier-mâché rather than like concrete.
Anything else really heavy? Yeah.
So that makes sense. Which, continuing with this one in Cento, there's also choreographed dancing in between the floats. So there's like bands and floats and parties and choreographed dancers, and there's confetti raining down from everywhere. There's also, so there's beads in Mardi Gras in New Orleans where they throw beads.
Right.
This one has stuffed animals and inflatables.
Wow.
So as the floats go by, they'll toss stuffed animals into the crowd. I don't
That's
know.
intense.
It seems insane because I'm like, the budget alone must be insane. And then this seems also like, I've read this before in a couple different carnavales, but not specifically this, but they burn what is called a tassi, Tasi, on the very last day of the carnival. Interestingly, the tassi they read out the will of the tassi, and he gives personal possessions away to people of the town of Cento.
Wait, who is the Tassi?
It's an effigy.
Okay.
And it's not the only one. It's very common, it looks like in Carnavales, as I keep finding, it seems like a recurring theme, is they have a effigy of that Carnavale. Usually representing the Carnavale, sometimes representing more of a historical figure that was not well loved, but typically the Carnivale itself.
A specific historical figure?
Oh, it depends on the town. Some of them are like
changes.
Yeah,
okay.
like different towns have different. Like, oh, this person like really sucked. We hate that person.
Okay.
So you know what we should do? Burn him every year for the next couple hundred years.
Alrighty.
So this one though seems, but also even in the one I'll talk about in a bit in Puglia, they use a pig to represent the end of the carnival. So it'll be like this is the funeral of the Carnevale. Is this, and then they, I guess, eat the pig.
Wow.
So there's a lot of burning of effigies, a burning of things that represent the end of Carnevale, which I think is a fascinating way of kind of putting a little point on the end of it. In this one, they burn something called the tassi, and it's an effigy of the Carnevale, and the effigy reads out, or I guess doesn't read out because it's an inanimate object, but somebody reads out the personal will and gives away its possessions to people of the town. And I'm kind of assuming like these are possessions that the people first gave. It's not like they just...
Because this effigy doesn't have its own possessions.
Right. I'm not sure where it got the possessions from. I just love the idea that it's sort of like, you get my crock pot, and then you get my pans, and you get those chairs you always wanted. I don't know how it works, but I do love it. And then they burn it, and then everyone celebrates. So
super
wild to me. And that's in Cento. So if you're interested, if you're in Ferrara, if you're in Bologna, if you're in, Florence at a certain point, you could probably make it there. It just seems like a fascinating sort of event that you should certainly check out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Also in Tuscany is in a town called, not also in Tuscany. The other one is not in Tuscany. It's in Emilia, Romagna, but also in Tuscany, continuing from if you're in Florence. This one also happens to be in Tuscany. And there's actually two in Tuscany. This one is in Foiano. This is also where they burn an effigy. I just thought it was kind of fun. They burn an effigy of Giocondo, 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 the king of the carnival. But they do it as a form of collective purification. Yes. And
that
again,
sounds like some midsummer stuff.
Doesn't it? Actually, okay, so when I read into it more, it reminds me a lot of the New Year's practice that some people do is when they write things that happened on the previous year on a piece of paper and they burn it. And just as a way of kind of like wiping the slate clean, not necessarily like of your sins or anything necessarily, but more of a just sort of like I want a blank page. I want a fresh start. I just want to go into the next year with a sort of just not focused on what happened last year type thing. So they basically read it, they call it like a testament of the year's events. It's unclear if it's just like, Giacomo opened up a new, motor shop, and this guy opened up a new restaurant, and that person did this thing, or if it's more of like, here's where we failed as a town. I'm not really sure what is in the testament. And either way.
But they do it collectively as the town?
A person reads the testament to the town.
Okay.
And then they say, and here's Giocondo, king of the carnival. And then they burn the king, and it's supposed to be like, all right, we're good. We have cleansed ourselves, and we can move in to this next year. I'm laughing just because it is kind of midsummer, right?
I'm making a face.
You are making a face. But
it's surprised.
It does have, It's also, I will say it's interesting too. What I found fascinating is, and I think I mentioned this before the podcast, is all the carnivals I'm mentioning, I believe, except really Venice. Venice has floats technically. I think one of the day has some floats on the boats. But
it's not the same as you would think of with Mardi Gras or Carnival or anything like that with floats going through the streets.
Exactly. It doesn't seem as core a part of the concept of Carnevale in Venice as it is in other places. And all of these others that this hit, I mean, I believe, I think every other town I'm going to mention today has floats as a huge part of it. But I think what is interesting is how it differs. And for instance, in Foiano, there are only 4 cantieri or neighborhoods, groups will make floats. And originally, like, back in the 1800s, it was 2, and then it became 3, and then it became 4, and then it became 2 again, and then it became 4. So today there are 4 different cantieri, or different neighborhoods, basically. They are the Azzurre, the blue, Azzurri, Azures. I don't...
Azures?
Azures. What is that color called? Azure?
Azure.
That's called azure?
I think in American English, yeah.
I always pronounce it azure. Yeah. Wild. Okay, so the azzurri, or the azures, the rustici, or the rustics, and then because they don't like to translate, I guess, the bombolo, which it only translates to bomb. I don't know if it's actually the bombs or if it's somebody's last name.
It could be. It also could be that the bombola is a kind of food as well.
Yes, which is a gut bomb, so to speak. And then the nota ambulo, or ambulai. It's supposed to be either night owl or night hawk.
Ooh.
And it's interesting. They all work in the same building. There's a giant building called the shipyard. It kind of looks vaguely like a shipyard. And it's partitioned. But the idea is it's to prevent people from copying. So it's like you're technically working under wraps. But the idea is, I don't know, it seems to be kind of like almost like an honor system. Like you can't steal other people's ideas. But there's a big unveiling. But they basically start in kind of like in the summer is when they start to make these floats for February. And like once it hits winter, it's like a round the clock kind of thing, but they're called shipyard workers. It's like in Italian, it's just like, oh yeah, these are the shipyard workers working at the shipyard. And it's just
making floats,
making there's only 4 floats. And they're these giant, amazing, impressive floats. They have to submit their designs and the whole 9 yards. And so people have an idea of what they'll look like.
It reminds me very much, I think, when I was a small child, I watched like a public television documentary sort of thing on the Macy's Day Parade. Mm-hmm. And I should actually say the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That was very capitalist of me. The Macy's Parade. Day. But I think at a certain point, a lot of the floats and balloons are in one building. And there is a bit of that. You can't go over and copy people's things. You need to stay with your own float. And the whole production behind all of it, designing it, things like that, reminds me a lot of this.
Well, I'm curious because one thing I kept reading is that a lot of these floats were at some point in history, and not just in this town, in everywhere they were making floats. At some point, it seems like they moved to a certain area to make floats in the same area, if not the same building. And it seems to be the same measure of, like, when they were all separate, people were like sending spies and this and that. And it's just like, no, but if we're in the same building, don't set fire to the building. I mean, like, I really don't know. Yeah. But some people apparently take this very seriously, which again, it's almost all of these have a competitive nature to it. There are prizes to win. There are sort of like honorifics to win. There are just, you get your name inscribed somewhere. The Nighthawks have not won, or the Night Owls have not won since 2017. So everyone else has won since then. But
that's not that long ago, though.
It isn't, but it must be.
I mean, it seems like a tense competition.
It is, and they're the newest team, though. They're made in the 60s of like sort of these other teams that kept getting together and disbanding, Okay. So it's a tense atmosphere over there, and I imagine right now it's probably really tense because we're getting close to the to when it kicks off.
Yeah.
So that is Foiano. If you are in Tuscany,
Foiano or Foiano?
Foiano. Thank you, Darcy. She's reading the notes and being, I should tell him how to pronounce this.
It is spelled Foiano.
Foiano.
If you're looking it up.
Yeah, Foiano. So if you happen to be in Tuscany, that could be a lovely sort of place to visit.
Yeah.
Also in Tuscany, near Lucca. This is kind of more on the water. Viareggio, Viareggio. So Lucca is kind of near the water. This is pretty much the port of Lucca, more or less.
Lucca has a port?
No, but it's kind of like how Rome doesn't have a port either. It has Ostia.
Okay.
But it's kind of like the port of, like, Ostia Antica, the old Ostia, would be the port of Rome. I think this kind of maybe it's the same thing because it looks like the same sort of, you can't attack Lucca by sea, but you can get to their port of Viareggio.
Cool. I always get confused because the Pixar Disney movie, there's that animated movie Lucca, which has mermaids in it, and it's on the water, which led me to believe that Lucca was on the water, and it is not.
And that one's Cinque Terre. Yes. Or at least it's supposed to be Cinque Terre. Yeah. That's a good point.
Confusing.
Very confusing.
Please continue.
Okay, no, but that is very confusing. So this one seems to be more of a let loose, have a party. It's every weekend night they do something. It seems like during the weeknights it's a little more chill, but every weekend night they do something. And just like anywhere else, but specifically in Viareggio is famous for it. And Darcy, you mentioned another town off mic that I did make notes for called Ronciglione, 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 where the floats also have a sort of satirical message. A lot of these are, and so Viareggio is the same place. They often have an allegorical, they're called allegorical floats or satirical floats. I think Viareggio made headlines a couple years ago, 2017. So that's not a couple years ago. That's almost like 8 years ago. But they had a float of Donald Trump. And so a lot of these tend to be political figures. They are satirizing or making fun of in some way. So Vladimir Putin, for instance, like almost every year there's a float of, him or somebody like that. So they often are making fun of different political figures, typically though within Italy. So it can be a bit, if you don't know any Italian figures, and it can just be like, oh yeah, here's another person, yay, clapping. But the whole idea is it tends to be a sort of anti-establishment sort of
And
feeling.
they look a bit like a float version of this political cartoons.
Exactly.
Which is like a caricature,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Interestingly though, so when it's not that, everything confined is that they have these all-night parties on the weekends. Clubs, bars, restaurants, whatever it is, you're masked up, not like a medical mask, to be fair. You have to be clear, you have a mask, like a Venetian mask type mask.
Wow, cool.
And you're basically, it's colorful dance parties. I just hit my mic. I apologize. I should stop gesturing with my hands so much. It is colorful dance parties all night long. But it seems to be big on the celebration aspect of the carnival. And that's like kind of going back to what I said in the last episode, Wednesday's episode, is like, these don't really have a very religious flair to them. This is very much this is more the Saturnalia flair that I mentioned. It's very much we're going to have a bash. We're going to be drinking
Party, eat
and
pastries,
partying.
drinking. Yes.
So if you happen to be in Lucca or if you happen to be in Florence, honestly, this could be kind of a fun way to check out what happens in the winter in Italy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Specifically around Carnavale.
Specifically around Carnevale. Moving south, there's two other ones or a couple more to mention, but moving south first into Puglia, there is one in Putignano, Putignano, Putignano. It looks like Putignano. I love Italian sometimes. So in Putignano or Putignano, it's in Puglia, Bari, Lecce, kind of, I mean, just if you're in Puglia, you can get there type thing. So it's in the southeast of Italy. They claim to have the longest Carnavale in terms of running time. Not like historically, but like literally from when it starts to when it ends every year. It starts December 26th and it ends on, I guess, where everybody else is Lent, right? Fat Tuesday, Ash Wednesday, something.
Ash Wednesday, yeah.
Thank you. I'm like, they all have fun names.
That's interesting because also in Puglia, in a previous episode, we mentioned Taranto claims to have the longest running Christmas celebration. Again, not longest in history, but longest in the amount of time that they're celebrating Christmas, which must intersect with this because their Christmas celebration goes past December 26th.
Yes. Well,
so Puglia, I guess, is all about having long celebrations.
Like, please don't let us enjoy winter all by ourselves. We can't. Please help us. And it's, I mean, so at the same time, so it starts December 26th, is the Santo Stefano, St. Stephen's Day. And it's supposed to basically start with the Festa di Propagini, which is where local poets recite poems in the local dialect. And then it ends on Fat Tuesday with a parade. It's a funeral of the Carnevale represented with a pig. So it's one last day to eat like crazy, to eat really rich food, and then I guess you go into Lent, I believe.
And you give things up.
Which I don't know if you have to give up the fat food, but I guess you do.
I think
it's like one thing, but you don't have you give up a lot of things. I don't know how this works.
I believe potentially in the Catholic religion, you don't eat a lot of rich foods during Lent.
Okay, good to know.
I could be wrong. I apologize to anyone who knows more than I do and who practices those things.
Good to know. I don't know anything about Lent. It's just like, I think when you're young, everyone's like, oh, what are you giving up for Lent? It's like, I don't know, Hershey's Kisses. I have no idea.
I was raised Methodist, and sometimes we would choose a thing to give up. It wasn't a big part of my upbringing, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think it was mentioned at all. I think it was more No, I think nobody gave up anything except like, things you were going to give up anyway. But then you feel good about it. It is also, though, one of the oldest in Europe. It has its origins in 1394. There's no cut there, by the way. I just kept talking. In case someone's like, what a weird cut. It wasn't a cut. It's just me subject changing without any sort of off ramp into this at all. So it is actually one of the oldest in Europe, though, 1394. Apparently it started when the Catholic saints brought somebody brought like the thing. What are the Catholic saint things called when it's like this is an object of this
a relic?
saint? Thank you. They brought a relic to this town in Putignano, and apparently people in the farms, like out in the fields, were so overjoyed that they followed the relic into town, and they were singing and they were throwing a party, and apparently also making fun of the current administration.
Incredible.
That was a part in Italian, so I translated. I was like, I don't understand this, but it's like, yes, they were singing and dancing and also making poems and jokes at the current government or current administration. So I'm like, oh, so that's like as soon as Italians start celebrating, they're like, you know what sucks? This current administration. And then that's been like the running joke for 1,400 years.
I love that.
That was terrible math. So 700 years.
Sure.
And even though it does kick off, like I said, on December 26th is when it starts, things apparently, according to the official website, don't really start until January 17th. And that's when it's supposed to be kind of like, it's something happening all the time. When an Italian says it's a party every night, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Sometimes it's karaoke until like 2 a.m. and everyone's tired of it. Like last night, I love it. It was great. But it was like chestnuts and karaoke until the wee hours of the morning in our lovely little town here. So I'm not sure
what new wine.
And new wine.
And
well, that was
precipe.
really.
That's the other word. If you listen to last Wednesday's episode, I was saying that I've been mispronouncing words in Italian. We have been mispronouncing precipe, which are the nativity scenes.
Yes.
Sorry, keep going.
No, thank you. That was good. I like that little just late edit there. So then that's Putignano. It starts the 17th. I believe that's the same day that not really, but I think Venice kicks off the 31st. So it's kind of like if you're in here late January into February, if you're like, I want to see all the debauchery in all of the cities, well, you can start down in Putignano. Moving to Sicily, Acireale has a pretty famous Carnavale. And I also want to mention too, I need to go to Acireale. It is a town that keeps popping up like repeatedly. Like it turns out like we meet somebody and they have a house in Acireale, and then it's like, oh, but somebody's cousins also has a house in Acireale. And this other person also has a studio in Acireale. And I'm like, what is this place? I don't understand. So it is a city just north of Catania. So if you are in Sicily, if you're in Catania, Syracuse, Ortigia, which is the little island near Syracuse, kind of anywhere on the east of Sicily, you can get to Acireale. They do have what is considered Italy's most beautiful carnival. It has flowers as a pretty main element of it, which is why it gets that title, but also papier-mâché and the floats and the whole 9 yards. They will also have they're very good at floats. So they do this in Carnevale in February, and then they do it again. There's a flower float parade in May. So if you're in there in May, and then in August, they do another Carnevale. It's a repeat of the first one, but it's so popular that they're like, we'll do again in August when it's everybody's vacation anyway and everyone's there visiting. So they do a whole second Carnevale in August. So
with the same floats.
It's supposed to be the same floats. Okay. It's kind of the same thing, like the rerun, but it's just when it's warmer out and people are less miserable, I imagine.
It's lovely.
Yeah, no. So if you're visiting Sicily in August, or let me rephrase, if you're visiting Italy in August, this is actually a great chance to see Carnevale without having to come in February. It also dates, from the 1500s, but like a lot of them date from a lot of these Carnevales are like roughly 1500s kind of thing. Interestingly, actually, this one, they have, I think like 15, I want to say like 34 or something like that. They have a very specific date because there's a payment slip from the Capuchin monks basically paying for the festivities. And then, of course, they know that people used to throw oranges and lemons and apparently like rotten eggs because there was a bill signed saying you cannot do that anymore later, and then fines given out later. So we know that they did this not because people wrote they did this, but people got in trouble for doing it. It seems like that didn't really stop it though, the whole throwing of things. But an earthquake seemed to kind of mark the end of the Carnevale in Acireale in the late 17th, early 18th century, and then it didn't happen up again until about 80, 90 years later. So once it happened again, people were not still throwing oranges. Interesting, what took the place, though, are poets. So instead, I have no, yeah, Darcy's making a face of like, how's that the same thing? So you throw an improvised poet. You do not throw poets. There are instead these poets that are everywhere on every street corner is how it's written, but can't imagine it's every street corner. It just seems everywhere. And they were just improvised poetry to people walking by. And it kind of seems like beat poetry, just off the cuff, but also it's Italy. So wine is definitely involved, or drinking in some way, shape, or form is definitely involved, especially in the winter where you're cold. So I have this image of these sort of semi-drunk 50-something-year-old male poets who are making no sense whatsoever, garbling through improvised poetry, but then like shouting at people with like such fervor that you're like, this guy's either a genius or a madman. That's kind of what it is in my head. I don't know if it's remotely true. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, it happens in August if you missed it in February, but it's supposed to
Are
be.
the poets also there?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope that they're just. I kind of hope it's a year-round thing, but they just get officially recognized for Carnevale. But it is. It seems beautiful. It seems like a town that, again, they have a lot of, or a city that does a lot of very careful papier-mâché. It's really a lot of pride in the floats, in the details, in the creation. It's not like we just threw something together and put it out there. It seems quite impressive in terms of like the scale and what they're trying to achieve. And also they're trying to create this sense of it's happening constantly. It also, I want to throw in with this one and almost all the other Carnavales, there are tickets involved. So I don't know how much of this happens in ticketed areas or how much of it is like, for instance, I believe Acireale as well as a few others have a fireworks show to end the Carnavale. So that is technically ticketed, but I'm like, how do you just look up in the sky? How do you ticket that? So I don't know if it's like the best spots are ticketed.
Okay.
Or I don't know, like they force everyone to wear sunglasses. You pay money to take those sunglasses off. So I don't really know how that happens. Lastly, I just want to mention a few that were very, very quick, just to kind of tie off the end of the episode, if that works, just in case. One is, as Darcy mentioned earlier, Darcy mentioned earlier, is Ronciglione, Ronciglione is how it looks like it's in English. Mm-hmm. That one is in Viterbo, in the province of Viterbo. It's basically 5 nights from Fat Thursday to essentially Ash Wednesday or Fat Tuesday. Everything's fat, I think. Come one, come all, eat some food. There is parties, floats, parades. They also have the allegorical floats where, again, there's a very anti-establishment. No, I say anti-establishment in the sense of...
it's just making fun of political figures.
That's the one, yeah, which is a pretty large history in Italy, pretty long history in Italy. There's also a soapbox race since 2018. If
Adorable.
you feel like you want to enter a soapbox race. I do believe you have to supply your own soapbox, but I'm sure you can.
Like a soapbox car race.
Not like get on your soapbox and who can talk for the longest. That's so much better. A soapbox car race. I did forget a pretty integral word there. Thank you. So they have a soapbox car raid and then a gala parade that happens. And essentially it seems to be very similar to Venice's costumes, where it's essentially a parade of everybody in these really beautiful sort of 17th, 18th century costumes going through the streets. So if it's in the province of Viterbo, which is pretty close to Rome. So that could be a way reaching, but it's still a little bit farther away. But it's one of the things that happens for 5 nights. So it could be worth the day trip if you're in Rome and there's not really much happening. You're like, yeah, let's go check out what a small town does for Carnevale. Another one I wanted to mention is Fano. It's in the Marche region. You almost certainly will not go to Marche. Respectfully, nobody goes to Marche. It's not a region that it's kind of like, it's imagine going to the United States and going to Arkansas. I mean this respectfully, but like there's not much in Arkansas that you have, if you go to the States, you go to like Miami or like New York or San Francisco, you go to like the big cities that you've seen in movies. But I think 9 times out of 10 people are like, I've never even heard of I didn't know it existed. La Marque is kind of like that. Nobody really knows it's there. They're just like, oh, I didn't realize there was anything over there. That being said, though, the carnival there, Carnevale in Fano, is called the sweetest carnival in Italy because people throw sweets and chocolates and just goodies at people on the streets, and people on the streets have these little paper cones you're supposed to hold and catch the things. Apparently, sweet. It started, there were the 2 feuding families of Fano during a 3 days of they happened to be getting along for 3 days. They threw some sort of celebration and sweets were involved, so it kind of morphed into this thing of 3 days. We don't want to kill each other. Let's just throw candy instead. It seems there's reenactments, there's bonfires, it's a whole thing, but the sweets thing seems to be a huge part of it. And last but not least, if you happen to be just late to get to the Carnevale by 4 days, you will find yourself in good company because a patron saint of Milan was 4 days late coming back from his hermitage, I think, his pilgrimage, not his hermitage, and asked that Carnevale just be paused or stopped for 4 days. And they, apparently they waited for him to get back, and then when he got
Wow.
back is when they threw Carnevale. So 4 days after Wednesday, what is that, a Saturday, I think? I guess Milan Saturday, I don't know what they have a fun name for it, is when you can find the Carnevale in Milan. And it's the same thing. Floats, party, celebration, confetti, fun stuff. It's just inexplicably 4 days after every other kind of part of Italy.
Or inexplicably, because they're like,
Yeah.
our saint was late, so we put it off for a few days.
Which, I mean, you gotta, mad respect, I guess, for your saint. But those are the biggest ones. I mean, well, like even where we are, there's not even a Carnevale celebration so much as it is a day where they fry up a bunch of food. And like there's a celebration where you go, like you just kind of go through the streets and everybody's selling like donuts and this and that. It's like everyone's getting rid of their milk and cheese and butter historically, I guess for Lent. So everybody's selling like donuts filled with cream and donuts filled with this, and it's a lot of donuts. There's also donuts with anchovies, which are very big here. So if you like donuts but you like them savory, then
with little fish.
In there, then you can also have those. They are also available. So this is all to say that and anywhere you are in around Carnevale, there will probably be something. But I know that obviously in Rome, there tends to be like there is a procession. I think even here, I think there's a procession technically, but more people show up for the donuts, I think, than the.
I would say yes.
Yeah, it's more of a draw. Donuts here are a pretty big draw. So and I think that's everything.
Yeah, that's been great. Wow. A lot of these I did not know about. I knew that there were these big celebrations all over, like with the floats and costumes and things like that. The poets were new to me. Did not know that was a thing. But oranges, throwing of citrus fruit was new
In
to
Ivrea,
me.
as we mentioned in Wednesday's episode, yeah. And even in Acireale, and they stopped doing that because I guess people are like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the one in Ivrea seems like people are prepared. Like if you see the photos, they're in like historical dress and they have like the helmets and stuff on, but like, you could tell they got padded clothing on. Like nobody wants to take a orange to the side
gut,
of the neck or the gut. Yeah. It's like they are prepared. Cause you always know there's one person like throwing way too hard. Like everyone's lobbing gently. And there's always one person who's like, didn't make it to the minor leagues. So they're like, okay, I can throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball or whatever. It's the only thing I know about baseball. So there we are.
Thank you, Nathaniel. This has been really fun.
You are more than welcome. I am happy to have you all join us on this celebration and exploration of Italy's carnivals, of which there are many, many, many. But if you happen to be pretty much near any major city, there will be one happening around you in February.
Super.
And thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks for listening. Tanti abbracci.